What dark secret are you hiding from everyone? Most people in my family think that my mother recently died suddenly from complications due to cancer, but she really died from the toxic effects of oxycodone, morphine, fentanyl and methamphetamine. Seems as though she just had herself a secret death party. My suicidal depression isn't gone. I've just accepted that I have to wait to die of natural causes because killing myself would scar my family and most people who know me for life. FAQ. No, this isn't passive suicidal ideation as I've attempted twice before and still have active thoughts sometimes. Yes, I am in therapy and have tried medication, exercise, etc. No, I don't want to try microdosing psychoactive substances as I have psychotic depression, meaning I'm prone to hallucinations and such if pressed. One of my closest coworkers, who is an integral part to our very large corporation, killed a man in his late teens and threw the body in a lake. He only got off on a technicality. I work remotely, so I don't build a lot of personal relationships with people I work with regularly. I googled his full name. It freaked me out at first. But I've kinda gotten over it. I wonder if anyone else knows. It happened 40+ years ago. He will retire soon and then I might ask another coworker about it. I just don't want to stir the pot. My girlfriend started selling used pants and stuff online. Someone wanted used insoles from her shoes. I walk for about 6 hours at a time at work and often just put her insoles in my shoes. Those perverts are getting off to the smell of my sweaty feet thinking it's a girl. After my parents got divorced, my stepdad basically moved right in and started sexually abusing me. I knew it was wrong deep down somewhere, but figured since he was an adult, he knew what he was doing and to trust him. One night my sister caught him red-handed and flipped out and told my mom. Cops came and he got arrested. I was only like 9 to 10 years old, so a lot of it is a blur. At first my mom had me sleeping in bed with her at night and was babying me and I loved it. One day, months later, we were walking home from school and we saw me dad's van sitting outside of our house. We weren't allowed in and we saw garbage bags sitting outside. My dad told us that my mom had called him earlier in the week and told him that if he didn't come and get us she'd get rid of us. She wouldn't come out and talk to us and I cried. My dad lived in another state, so this meant we'd have to leave our friends and our hometown. Our friends ran after the van as we drove away. For a few years she wouldn't talk to us BC. She had allowed my stepdad to come back and that's why she stayed away. Guess she didn't want to face us after what she'd done. She'd chosen a man who'd abused her child over her own children. Eventually we had a relationship with her again, but she was so sick. The funny thing is that she's in a really high up position for one of the largest banks in America. Professionally people think she's amazing. She's a monster. I finally had the courage to cut her out when I went into recovery from heroin addiction 11 years ago and haven't spoken to her since. A few people know this story, but not many, and it felt good to get it out to the world. My life has flourished since cutting her off. People always say how I need my mom. Lol. Don't be scared to boot family out of your life, just be their family. Thanks for allowing me to share this, Reddit. Not a huge secret in comparison to some of these answers, but I feel the guilt of it often. After my fiancé passed, I napped all the time for over a year. My aunt was calling me one day and I just denied her call, went back to napping. It was my aunt calling because my grandma, who was very sick with cancer, wanted to say happy birthday a day before my birthday. Grandma died the next day. I should have picked up the damn phone. 2 days before my dad took his life he called me telling me what he wanted to do. He had been calling me and telling me how depressed he was for months and I was sick of hearing it, and I hung up on him. I hung up on my suicidal father. He then killed himself on my 17th birthday. Everybody in the family thinks it was coincidence that he took his life on my birthday, but I know the real reason. I've never told a single member of my family as I know they would blame me, especially my brother. Ever since he took his life I have this recurring nightmare of seeing my dad in a grocery store passing at the other end of the aisle. He's pushing an empty shopping cart and briefly looks at me at the other end of the aisle but keeps going. When I run to where he was, he's now at the other end aisle. Rinse and repeat until wake up screaming. Some secrets will haunt you until you die. Married for 13 years to my best friend. We had what I thought was a great, easy marriage. One day our 5-year-old daughter told me he was having her perform oral sex on him. I was shocked, devastated and afraid. He was one of those fun guys everyone loves to be around. I immediately called the police and he was arrested. When they started investigating him, they found out that he had been arrested while in college for exposing himself to very young boys. He only got a slap on the wrist that time because he came from a very wealthy family. One of his uncles was governor of the state we lived in. I was so ashamed I told our friends that he had an affair and moved away. But the truth was that he was in prison for 5 years. I picked up the pieces, sent our daughter to therapy and spent the next 15 years being a mother. Paying for private school, cool trips, etc. She was my life. Then when she went to college, he reached out to her over Facebook. When I saw she was communicating with him, I was shocked, devastated and afraid all over again. I called and told her that she was an adult, but I thought she should be careful because he's not safe. She hung up on me and has not spoken to me since. That was 4 years ago. I send her $40,000 a year still to pay for her medical school. It's all been almost unbelievable. Thank you for allowing me to share it here. In middle school, I made a smoking pipe out of copper pipe just for fun. I know you should not smoke out of copper as the fumes are potentially toxic. My stepdad took it from me and started using it. He smoked with it for years. I hated him for physically abusing me, so I never said anything. It's now 30 years later and he was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's and likely only has a few years to live. I hope he rots in hell. I don't know if it had any effect, but I like to think the copper pipe played a role in his sickness as karma for being an asshole. My grandmother has dementia. She's been dying for years now. The woman she was before is entirely gone. My grandfather is still convinced she is there, talks to her, tells us he thinks she's getting better. She's not, and he's deluding himself. She doesn't laugh anymore, or remember anyone's names, and can barely eat. In my eyes, she is already dead. Still alive to everyone else. I wish this husk of her was gone so I could remember her as she actually was, and so that I wouldn't have to watch my grandfather or the rest of my family delude himself. My PTSD isn't getting better. I have nightly nightmares of the industrial accident I was in. I see my coworker ripping his burnt face off every night. I no longer scream in my sleep because of it. I'm no longer terrified as much by it. Even though I know it's not my fault, I feel an enormous amount of guilt for what happened to him. Sometimes when I'm not sleeping, I'll hear the scream he made in the distance and it'll make my blood feel like ice. Therapy hasn't done much. Sometimes I can clearly see in my head a truck smashing into me while I am driving, and then a voice in my head says that would actually be a good thing. Yes, I went to therapy and they found nothing wrong, no signs of depression, etc., but this is something haunting me for years. This and the thought that if there is a fire, I won't even attempt to get out. On paper, I love my perfect life and I am grateful for it. Do I want more of it? No. I'm feeling lost and alone even though I'm surrounded by friends. The fact that I've been single practically all my life, and the older I get the less I have confidence it will ever happen. Some people know, but most don't know this about me and think I'm happy every day when in fact that's just a facade I've built years ago. I witnessed my fiance's suicide last year. I moved states afterwards and started a new life. My coworkers, clients, and new friends call me the sunshine of whatever room I walk into, but I'm completely dead inside. Even though I choose to fake it, I resent them for not seeing how fucked up I am. Cutting off my dad was the best decision I've made. I hope it kills him inside every day to not know how his only child and only grandchild are doing. I tried for years to have a relationship with him since age 10 until 18. From 10 to 13 he would tell me he wished I would have died when I was sick as a kindergartner because I wouldn't have tattled and ruined his marriage to my mom. I tried multiple times but was unsuccessful. I still tried to have a relationship with him for my mom, to help her financially, and would visit him for months. He'd keep me locked in a closet for hours at age 14. From 16 to 18 he thought throwing money around would help me, but I was already working by then and it didn't matter. I still have my daily battle where I ask myself if he's right or not, but I see my kid and I can't imagine thinking such vile things about them at that age like my dad did about me. I've struggled with disordered eating for at least a decade. It ebbs and flows. I know it's unhealthy, but the toxic part of me loves the feeling of being empty. Several years ago it was really bad. I was at my lowest weight ever. I had brain fog, difficulty breathing. When I started eating again, my stomach would get really bloated even if I only ate a small amount. I gained weight in the last year or so and my depression and anxiety got really bad for a while. My family thinks I don't want to spend time with them. However, I just wanted to stay home because trying on my clothes and the idea of being in public made me want to kill myself. It was easier on me mentally to just stay home. I can feel myself slipping back into my old disordered eating habits, unfortunately.